off 29. Left go to bypass.
Good afternoon and welcome to our January 24th meeting. We have a few people in the audience and hopefully a few more watching us on our Electric City television. Invocation tonight will be given by Councilman Jeff Roberts, and respects to the flag will be given by Councilman Tony Stewart. Please rise.
Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, let us pause and give thanks for all the ways that you have blessed our lives, our community, and this nation. We pray for the ability to reflect upon these blessings and for the humility to acknowledge that these blessings are derived from you and not from our own doing. We pray that your blessings will bring peace, prosperity, safety, and well-being to all of our citizens. We conduct this meeting, we pray for wisdom, discernment, and for the capacity to provide effective leadership to the citizens of Anderson. Allow us to see clearly the right path to take and to make the best decisions for our future. Most importantly, let us conduct ourselves in a manner that is pleasing to you. In your holy name we pray, amen. To the flag.
Before we start the body of our meeting, we do have a couple of special recognitions, and I'm going to lead the first one. And this one, again, I say this a lot, is kind of tough sometimes when you lose a member of your team that's been here a long time, that has a lot of institutional knowledge, and just the work ethic has always been there and just a pleasure to work for. But I'd like to recognize Erica Kraft, our community development division head. If Erica would walk forward, and I'm going to keep talking. But she was always, if you know much about the federal government, you can get in trouble real quick. And so one time we were like in CBDG hell, and she got us out of it. But it was always a pleasure of listening to her talk professionally about what she did. I mean, she knew it. And she always, sometimes when, as we all know, when the federal government gives you money, there's always strings attached, and she always kept us out of trouble. So we have a plaque for her, and it's presented to Erica M. Kraft in appreciation for 26 years of loyal and dedicated service to the city of Anderson, signed on this day, January 24th of 2020. Erica.
The mayor is right. I was a steward over many millions of dollars for almost 20 years here, and I wasn't the sole person responsible for that. I'd like to thank first and foremost the community development staff that are here with me tonight, and that goes to past staff members as well as present, and also to thank our former director, Willie Day, and his predecessors. And of course, Council, I thank you all for the support that you've given me throughout the years. The colleagues, there are many of us. When I came here, Maurice McKenzie and I laughed. I was the baby of the group. And I look now, and it's like retirement. So it's been an honor, a privilege to work in the neighborhood from which I grew up. Many of you are aware I grew up in a community development, redevelopment area. And it's been an honor every day to come and serve that neighborhood and many other areas that are underserved. And I hope that along the way we've made a difference in the lives of those that are seeking housing. We've improved infrastructure, public facilities, and all of that, again, is as a team here. And I'm just grateful to have had the opportunity. And I also be remiss in not thanking my family. As you can see, I have an army of support, and some I had no idea were coming tonight. Even my brother was tricking me, making me think he was going to watch it on live stream. So I'm grateful for him being here. My mother, of course, I have lifelong friends that are here with me. Mr. and Mrs. Leverett, my former teacher and mentor. Of course, I have Mr. and Mrs. Williams with me. And I'm just so grateful for the support of everyone. And my uncle, Arthur Craft, serves on Hartwell City Council, came here to be with us tonight. And of course, again, family and friends means everything. And I'm just looking forward to the future. And thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everything, Erica. Thank you.
Y'all gonna miss it.
Now we're going to,
It's just going to be the lieutenant.
okay, thanks. And now we're going to move on to Police Department promotions. And I'm going to ask Chief Stewart to come down and lead us in that one. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 5 new promotions that have just recently occurred within our department. I'd like to share those with y'all tonight. We have 2 captains that can't be here tonight. They're not feeling well, and we wish them a speedy recovery, Captain Jeff Mosier and Captain Mike Roberson, and we'll do theirs at a later time. Our 3 lieutenants are here tonight, and we're going to promote them into a new position. They're starting new jobs. I would like to start with Lieutenant Jan DeBlay, if you'll come down and join me behind the stage. Tell you a little bit about Lieutenant DeBlay. He started his law enforcement career in Greenwood in 2007. In 2010, police department, SWAT team, and also 2012 as a K-9 handler. In 2013, he was transferred to the Narcotics Vice Division, where he served as our alcohol, tobacco, and firearms officer here at the city. In 2017, he became the commanding officer of our SWAT team. In March 19, DeBlay was promoted to Detective Sergeant in our Criminal Investigations Division. And currently, he's going to be promoted to the Narcotics Lieutenant in our Special Operations Division. Lieutenant, you have some people here you'd like to recognize tonight?
This is my family, so my wife and 2 girls.
Lieutenant Hart, if you'd make your way down to the podium. Lieutenant Hart began his career at the Williamston Police Department in 1983 as a patrol officer. He was promoted to the rank of sergeant in 1986 and lieutenant in 1989. He oversaw all operations under the chief at the Williamston Police Department and officer for training for 14 years. In 2003, he came to the Anderson Police Department and worked for 5 years in patrol. He was transferred to our training division and was promoted in July of 17 to sergeant. He will currently be promoted to our training lieutenant in the Special Operations Division. Lieutenant, I think you have a group of people here.
I've got a cheering section.
I'm glad y'all could be here for this day. And lastly, Lieutenant Corn Pickens. Cornelius came to the Anderson Police Department in 2013. He started on patrol on Delta shift. Pickens quickly rose through the ranks and corporal in June of 2018 and later made sergeant. He's been named Rookie of the Year, Officer of the Month, and received multiple Crime Stopper awards and received the Distinguished Leadership Award last year. He's also the supervisor of our newly formed Tactical Medical Unit, and it was implemented October 2020. He will be promoted to lieutenant over Delta shift. So, gentlemen, job, take your statutory oath, just raise Repeat after me. Lieutenant of the City of Anderson, fairly and impartially, preserve the peace, carry into effect
All you do is good to see you again. Congratulations. Thank you, appreciate it.
The minutes of our January 10th meeting have been distributed. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? I
Approved as presented.
have first by Mr. Stewart, second by the Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The minutes of January 10th passed unanimously. We don't have any old business, so we move directly into our 5 items of new business. And our first item of new business is request consideration of an ordinance to rezone 110 Fairway Green from R20 to single-family residential, which is a RM10, multifamily residential. Mr. McEwen.
Council, this item was referred by you to the Planning Commission, and it was considered at their January the 4th, 2022 meeting. Unanimously recommended approval. We have the developer here tonight, Mr. Steve Manair, sitting just behind me here, and Mr. Maurice McKenzie, our Planning Development Director, will go over the details of the requests.
Thank you. This property consists of 10 acres at 110 Fairway Green, and as the mayor mentioned, the request is to rezone the property from R20 single-family residential to RM10 multifamily residential. The applicant is requesting to construct 68 townhouse units on the site, and under the RM10 zoning classification, you're allowed to build up to 8 units per acre as far as townhouses are concerned. So when looking at the 10 acres and the 8 units per acre, technically the density could be up to 80 units per acre, but the applicant is requesting the rezoning so they can construct 68 townhouses on the property. The existing zoning is R20. That means essentially you can build basically single-family houses only on the property as of now. So basically half-acre lots for this piece of property. The property is currently vacant. In the past, there were some landscape storage materials on the property. It was a non-conforming use. That has since been cleared, but again, the property is vacant, so the applicant is seeking to develop residential on that site. And if you look at that area in terms of zoning, there are a bunch of zoning classifications in the general area. Obviously, it's currently zoned R20. In the general area around it, you have R20 zoning, you have neighborhood commercial, you have light industrial, and also there are some RM10 zoning classifications in the area, and that's what the applicant is requesting. In fact, the property abutting this to the east is zoned RM10 multifamily residential, and it currently has, I believe, 17 duplex buildings, which equates to 34 units on that property. Behind the property, you have the Share Head Start School. That is actually on property zoned R20 single-family residential. So again, you have a variety of land uses and zoning in this particular area. The Planning Commission, as Mr. McEwen mentioned, heard this on January 4th. They did unanimously recommend approval of this request. Part of their reasoning was because there's a lot of land uses in the area, and abutting this property, you have multifamily residential. The developer is planning to have the internal street that you see in your plan a public street. So when this proposal goes through, that will be subject to the review and approval by the city engineer. And also the site plans and any development plans, building plans for that matter, will all be reviewed by city staff. And again, Planning Commission recommended approval of that. If you have any questions for me, feel free to ask me. And also the applicant is in attendance tonight.
Thank you. And I guess probably Mr. Stewart pointed out that in our packet, the description reads old business, but it should be new business. Is that?
Referred it by email back in December just because of the way the schedule worked with City Council. So we sent it as an email referral.
I do remember that now. So that in turn was just a referral to the Planning Commission. Correct? Yep. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. McKenzie?
I have one quick one, Mayor.
Yes, sir, Mr. Harbin.
How did it get zoned RM20? Tell me a little bit about that.
R20 zoning. In that area, in the southeastern part of the city, there are a lot of properties zoned R20 in the Nevitt Forest area through there, and I'm assuming that's just how it was from a long time ago. And as the zoning ordinance was revised in 1998, much of that property stayed the same. If you recall, this property, or part of it, was a driving range and a par 3 golf course in that area many years ago. So it's been a number of things out there. But yes, Mr. Harbin, there's just a lot of R20 in that general area. And this is kind of on the fringe of that R20.
We did a rezoning way back before my time. I think at one time they went any more vacant land, they did R20.
Yeah.
It's, maybe just as a general thing, because, I remember it used to be commercial, at one time. This was way back in the early 80s.
Sometimes that'll be put in as a placeholder. Yeah.
Sort of what my question was.
When you're looking at the entire city map and you're going through what we're going to go through the next 2 years, comprehensive plan, and then you go straight into your zoning map and the changes that you'll make, a lot of times you put in an undeveloped area as placeholders like that.
Good. Any other questions for Mr. McKenzie?
Mayor.
Mr. Roberts, Jeff Roberts.
Comments and then a couple of questions, but just to recognize this is not a spot zoning. It's already zoned the adjacent development. And I think generally it fits the growth pattern in that area. And it provides a nice transition from maybe what is commercial on the Highway 29 corridor to multifamily, and then maybe on to single family beyond that. One question, maybe two questions. Was there any public input for?
We had no public input, no calls, none.
Also, and I probably am asking the question I already know the answer to, but there is a road bond on the street construction.
Yes. Either construct the street in advance or put the bond up.
And another comment, really, this area, the area that I serve, is experiencing tremendous growth. And I don't know the number, but I would put it at over 1,000 units in C3 just recently.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it is growing.
Unless there are other questions, I'll move that we accept this rezoning.
We can continue discussion, but we have a motion by Mr. Roberts. Second by Mr. Harbin. Further discussion, Mr. Stewart?
Is there any type of buffering that we're going to put up for those lots that are adjacent to the school property? What's going to be required there to kind of separate that? I know it's small kids and everything at the Head Start school there.
Yes, sir. Good question. When there are two incompatible land uses, we call it that, between, in this case, institutional and multifamily residential, there will be required a buffer. I don't have my zoning ordinance with me, but there will be a screen at least of a landscape hedge, a fence, or opaque type wall between that. And I believe also there's a piece of property is zoned R20 to the west of it, a small piece, so they would be required to put the screening in there as well.
Any other questions? Got a first and a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously on the first reading. We'll move to the second item, which is request consideration of a resolution authorizing an agreement extending the time period for payment of the incentive grant to Benson Street Properties LLC. Mr. McEwen.
The attorney's going to cover this one for us. Okay. This is involving the Bleckley Event Center, which we agreed to give an incentive of $200,000 if he would build the event center, and he agreed to do that. And we anticipated the payments would be $40,000 a year. Our agreement provides that we don't pay any more than we get, and we did not. Apparently, we unanticipated the amount that we would get each year, so we're behind. We haven't been able to pay him the total $200,000 because we don't give him any more than revenue we get. Based upon, though, the benefit that this does give the community and the other draw of people to downtown that the event provides, plus, you know, some drawbacks on the assessment that was actually put on the value, that we came out with less. So we think he did what we asked him to do, and it's a good benefit to the city, and we ought to pay him the full amount we agreed to pay him. And so our recommendation would be we just extend the agreement until the $200,000 is paid, and we still don't give any more than we actually receive from revenue from him. So
yeah, and I'll just add in the original agreement, September the 28th, 2015. The agreements, we've tailored them individually since then, but this agreement says that one of the total incentive amounts shall not be greater than the direct value received by the city, and the city may at its discretion extend the incentive time period if deemed warranted based upon the continuing benefit created by the investment. And that's where Mr. McLean alluded to. It's a great investment downtown, help recruit and bring the hotel in by being able to say we had a major event center across the street. And then so far out, $125,000 has been paid out. So it leaves you a balance there. About what, 77,000 there?
a little less than 75,000.
75,000.
Thank you. Any questions, any comments?
On average, it's bringing in around 30,000 a year.
Yeah, so one thing that happened, you know, so when we were doing these back then, you had the taxes that were bringing in just under 30,000 because it included the TIF taxes, which were the combined of the city, school district, and county. Now it's bringing in just under 10,000 a year on the taxes, but then we also look at the water, sewer revenue, and other revenue, hospitality revenue that's brought in and added to the spreadsheet and look to see what can be paid out. So.
Good question.
I'll make
Other questions?
a motion that we approve this resolution to extend the time period until we get the $200,000 paid.
I have a first by Mr. Stewart, second by Mr. Newton. Mr. Horvath?
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to, you know, I can remember, I guess I'm getting old, back in 2015, whenever this was, this project was started. I mean, it was basically a vacant lot, hole on Main Street, and I appreciate the other people that were on council that had the foresight to partner with a local developer, and I think it has made a major impact in our downtown. And from, you know, the Main Street side all the way through to the Murray, as our city staff developed the back part of it, the old Hess station, I mean, it was a dilapidated gas station in 2015, and now it's a very nice landscaped lot, and so that's why I voted in favor of continuing this.
Good comments. Anything else? Great. Again, I think Benson Street Properties, it allowed us to, as David said, recruit the hotel. And I also, and I've said this for years, I think it, from a venue, wedding venue, and even small regional conferences that we can now host with a hotel and walk across the street for an event. So appreciate what they've done over the years. We had a first and a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Our third item of new business is request consideration of a mutual aid agreement with the South Carolina Water Wastewater Agency Response Network. Mr. McEwen.
From time to time, as per state law, we bring mutual aid agreements before you so that they're legally put together according to statute between municipalities from a law enforcement standpoint. We have them across the state from the coast to Clemson University to our surrounding municipalities, and they're very beneficial, of course. And then you look on the other side of things, and you got to keep in mind your utilities. And as you see, as a utility provider in water and wastewater, just as recently with the storm that we had, you saw where we had utilities come from Florida and so forth for the electric side of things. Well, on the water and wastewater side, there's also a need to enter into a mutual aid agreement. And so the mutual aid agreement before you, SC Warren, which is the SC Water and Wastewater Agency Response Network, with the acronym there, is to provide immediate relief for member utilities during emergencies. It's a mutual aid cooperative agreement among utilities. There's currently 135 members, which is substantial. And it's led by a steering committee that's associated agencies include the South Carolina Emergency Management Division, DHEC, SC Rural Water Association, the South Carolina American Water Works Association, which are all very professional, good organizations that lead this effort and are the steering committee for administering this mutual aid agreement. Very familiar with these. I've had to utilize these before. Been in other cities. It's a great asset. So the agreement's in your packet there. But basically, just to go over the nutshell of it, is that so say we were in a need and we determined that something was going to take, we had a storm or whatever it was, and or major repairs across the city, and it was going to utilize our resources and really exceed them, or we had a very extended time to restore the utilities. In that case, this was something we may want to utilize, and it's very efficient how you do it. So it would be the requesting agency. You would contact the group. There's an administrator over this. They send essentially a group request out to all the members, and then the members are not obligated to respond back, but of course out of cooperation do, and they provide the agreement provides the outlay of how they do this as far as what kind of equipment, personnel, supplies, etc. you need, and of course you put that in your request. And so I've seen this work across the state. It's very beneficial. It's also beneficial for those going to provide aid as they gain more and more experience, say, just like our public works crew did when they were deployed down to Mount Pleasant, just like our fire department is when they're deployed for hurricanes. You gain a lot of that you can bring back here. So when we have an event, you have that experience from the emergency management side of things, how things operate, but then in addition to that, we helping somebody else, they're going to help you out. So this is something I strongly recommend we engage in this, and it's something that had to come before council according to state law. So,
thank you, sir. Any questions? Any comments? Sounds like a pretty good structure and to provide help. Dr. Thompson.
Is there any fees related to this mutual agreement?
Yes, ma'am. So how these work is that so when you say we're requesting agencies and they respond and then they operate, they'll keep an operation list, and we would do the same of what equipment's being used, what personnel's being used, their actual payroll, and whatever supplies they use. And then the agency that comes and responds to us would bill us for those services, and then we would pay it. But what happens here in a storm situation, it's good to go ahead and pay it and get that checked off so they're not carrying the burden. And same if we were to respond. But what happens if you're in a state of an emergency is that most of the time you're just paying 25% and the FEMA would pick up the 75%. But it's a longer reimbursement period. So you go ahead and make the people that helped you out, the other entity that helped you out, whole, and then we would carry it until we got reimbursed by FEMA, if it was eligible. If not, you just pay it.
What's some of our partners, if you want to call them partners?
Some of the partners, Greenville Water, you got down at the coast, Buford, Jasper water system. They're really large. Of course, Greenville Water is really big. I print them out. There's 135 of them, but I think Powersville Water's in here. But most of the utilities they're in here, which is great. So,
Good. Any other questions, comments?
I think we can go ahead and approve this.
I have a motion by having a senior moment. Mr. Lockridge. He hasn't been in a while. Yeah, Rick. Second by John Roberts. All those in favor say aye. I think the mask threw me off there.
Just call me the Lone Ranger.
Our fourth item of new business is request consideration of final design, bidding, and construction administrative services for the Cox Creek Interceptor Sewer Replacement Project. Ms. McEwen.
Before you is a request for engineering services for the final design, bidding, and construction administration for the Cox Creek Basin Phase 1. So as part of our assessment and what we were, the programs we put together as part of the EPA, we had to assess our entire system. Part of the assessment include identifying areas where sewer replacement was needed to alleviate sewer surcharges and increase the capacity of sewer in the area. One such area is the Cox Creek Basin. So what you initially do is we broke this out into 3 phases. And so the first phase is the larger section of pipe, the downflow, if you will, and it actually receives the sewer from the upper end. And so we want to enlarge the pipe there because we're getting near capacity there. And so a preliminary engineering report was completed by Design South Engineers in September of 2019, and we talked about this at our work session at the American Rescue Fund's work session that we recently had. And then also we were awarded working with Design South, we were awarded a $500,000 grant from the SC Rural Infrastructure Authority, which is competitive. We were not, we put in the first time, were not awarded where we were persistent, provided additional details, follow-ups, and then they had some additional information. And we were able to secure the grant, which was fantastic. And so it's always great to get some help on these things. And so $500,000 there. It does require a match of $125,000. And then from our work session, we allocated for the $3.9 million project, $3.275 million from the American Rescue Funds. And so at this time, we recommend to move forward with the project to get into final design, then bidding, and then construction administration for $294,800 for this project. If you have any questions, Scott Baines couldn't be with us here tonight. Art Garrison's here, maybe answer some of the details of the distribution or the collection system. But as far as getting the project going, this is the next step.
Thank you. We did talk about this in work session, but please, if you have any other questions in regards to the scope of the project, as this is just the first part of it, but questions, comments? Ms. Stewart, then Mr. Roberts, Mr. Jeff Roberts.
I know we talked about it in session, and I think it's a project that needs to happen, but the price put in by Design South, Mr. City Manager, do we have anything to compare that to with what they're asking for? And just want to make sure, a lot of times when we get grant funds, everybody can ask for the world, but I just want to make sure that we're spending those grant dollars appropriately and as cost effectively as possible?
So one of the things you look at that, of course, we have a range. So the range that we look at is typically under 10%. Okay, so for design fees of the project, we're looking under 10% for this. And this comes out as 7.6% rounded of the fees. I found that a good competitive a bid for this, or a good competitive proposal for this. A lot of times, depending on the type of project, of course, because they actually, if you'll see within your packet, they detail out the exact man hours that are needed for each of the functions. And so we like to see, we ask for that to be itemized out too, so you can check that. So each of the items, and you kind of got to go back to about page 4 or 5 on this to see that, but it spells out for each of the items what the detail is, how many hours there is. But when you take the whole total, I look for that range to be typically under 10%. If it was more complex project and you were doing pump stations and you're doing a lot of other things that require electrical, mechanical, or some other things, then I would expect that to be higher. But in this case, it's a conveyance pipe upgrade. And so I think it's in line. It's been in line for all of our other projects that we've done.
Another question. What would be some of the services that would need to be provided 16 months after the construction is completed, after the 16-month construction and completion?
So they put that in there because they're saying, okay, if there's a, we're saying this is a 16-month project, right? So they're going to put a caveat in there, of course, and I would if I was them as well, that if the project were to extend past 16 months and end up being a 24-month project, maybe it was a holdup of hours. That happens sometimes, right-of-way acquisition. In this case, we're operate within our own right-of-way, but there's other things that can happen for site administration. That's why they put that caveat in there.
Mr. Roberts?
This is obviously a single source bid, but I assume that since they did the preliminary engineering, that they're familiar with the project already.
Right, yep.
Therefore, there's benefit in that. At this time, we don't know what the total cost is going to be until it's bid. We have budgeted here $3.9 million. If you take out their fee, that leaves 3.6 roughly. Do we know that, or are we anticipating the construction to be within budget? And if not, what do we do?
Yeah, this is the best estimate. We do, so when we talked about the American Rescue Funds, and that's why, we have great confidence moving this project forward, is that we allocated those into 3 buckets, and one of the bucket being infrastructure. And we know, one project's going to be less, one project's going to be more, and we'll have a balancing act throughout this thing. This is, the major sewer project. All the other ones are stormwater projects. This is a clear-cut one that we have to get going for the development of the city. Of course, pipe could go up, but back to the point of your question is, so we get this going, we understand the cost structure even more, and then as we'll get stormwater projects going parallel with this as well, but then on the back end, there's some smaller projects there that were also in the bucket that we can kind of take from if we need to.
We're be advised on a budget from Design South, so we're not going in just taking a guess at it.
This is exactly from the PER, the preliminary engineering report, the assessment to the detail. The uncontrollable, the variable, right, would be the petroleum, the amount for the pipe, that kind of thing. And so that could go up. I mean, that's in typical, or your labor for the contractors. But I think we'll have some good contractors here bid, and it'll be competitive.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Mr. Mayor, the 7%, do we anticipate, I know other ones that we've done, like Lindley Park, if I remember correctly, it was 11%. I know it was maybe a little bit more complex. Of the engineering, 11% of the total cost of the project. And I was surprised it was so sort of low, and I think that's probably why Mr. Stewart was asking, about it, because it seems like it's always been around 10%. Has that been compressing through the years or?
So in this case, how I see it, it's really, a straightforward project. So the right of way, we're putting this where pipe is, right? So we're putting it beside the pipe that's in the ground, and we're upgrading it. So it's less complex in that nature because you're not starting and designing from scratch in terrain where you don't have right of way, you don't have anything existing. You got to do a lot of property line survey. You got to do a lot of grading, some other things to get this pipe in. So from that standpoint, the only other fees that could go up, and that's at our discretion, would be if we requested them to do more on-site visits. To me, though, and that question, Matt, is okay, what contractor do we get? And because as we've seen on several other projects we've had some really good contractors. You just don't need to be out there every day with some of those contractors. Others you may need to be. So that's a variable cost that's not in here, which would go to their so all these proposals always have, of course, their per hour cost, right? So if we add on, we said, okay, listen, this section's a little requiring some more attention. We would like you out there more to take a look at this and verify that it's being built to drawings. Then we would ask them to do that, and it would be per hour on their schedule.
With that, I'd make a motion that we approve this, Mayor.
I have a first by Mr. Harbin, second by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? Anything we missed discussion-wise? No, you good? Okay. Yes. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Looking forward to the project getting started. Talked about it for a while. Our last item of new business is request consideration to allocate funds for Kid Venture 2.0, Phase 2 Venture Port. Ms. McEwen.
Bobby Bevel.
Mayor and Council come to you tonight for consideration of funding for Kid Venture 2.0. It is a partnership that the city and county entered into to transform Kid Venture. As most of you know, that was a community-built playground back in 1999, and it has served this community well. The project is based on a flower and petals of flower, and there are 5 that are under construction right now. The county awarded that bid to Foothills Contracting for $2.7 million. They've had an opportunity to build the entire playground, which would include the 2 additional petals and an area in the middle that would be a shaded area for families and parents as they watch their kids. This is an unbelievable concept. I think in my 15 years, it's probably the best partnership that the city and county has entered into, because it will impact so many families and so many community members for us, but it also will become a destination point for many families outside the region. And so tonight, in last year's budget, you all approved $283,000 from ATAX. We gave permission to the county to use $95,000 of the ATAX that we usually on the fields for this phase 1. You have in your packet a letter from Mr. Burns, the county administrator, and a copy of the design, and they're asking for an additional $322,000. This would come from hospitality, and this would fulfill the entire playground and would be the first ADA compliant playground in the upstate and be used by many. So we recommend approving the $322,000 of hospitality toward this project, and so we can finish this and we can be proud of this, as will the county be. It does not delay any of our projects now or in the future, so this is something that we can go ahead and do. So we recommend approving the $322,000 for this project.
Thank you, Mr. Bevel. Questions?
Actually, I came tonight with a few remarks prepared, but Bobby did a lot better job than I ever could. People don't know, but this is actually in the area that I serve, because I hop over Clemson Boulevard and I catch the Civic Center. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's really the only public playground I have in my area. I rode by the site this weekend and I saw our sign up there very prominently on the construction site along the county sign. We've partnered a lot with the county the last several months, so we have a great relationship with them. When people think of the city, they think of, public safety, sanitation, and recreation. I mean, those are top things you think about. I think this would be a great thing, not only for my area, but the city. It was well utilized over the last several years, but I've seen what the 7 pedals are going to look like. And I think, like you said, it's a destination. I think even this weekend there was a tournament going on. I don't know what it was, but I'm sure, next year at this time you would see lots of kids, lots of families out there. And I think that, anything we can do for recreation in the city, that's one of the main reasons I think we're here. So I know I'm very supportive of it, and I think that partnership we've struck with the county for this facility is, as you said, it's one of the best partnerships we've entered into.
Great.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? What's the anticipation date of completing this summer?
We hope, right now, they were hoping for the 5 pedals in May, so I would assume that it's going to be somewhere in June because they're going to use the contractor who's already mobilized, set up on site, so they can begin going ahead and do that immediately. So I think it will be immediately sometime this summer.
This summer. Let's do it.
Once it's built, who's going to maintain it, and what do we do? How is that going to work? Because we are heavily invested in it. So how is that going to work as far as maintaining? Who's that's going to rely on? Because we build a lot of great things, but we have a difficult time maintaining them.
It will be the county staff and their group that will maintain it. I think that's one of the good things for us is that we can be a partner in this, but it's on their site and that they maintain already. So I think that they realize that they're going to have to hire some additional people to do that. And with the poured in place surface, it's pretty easily maintained. You can take a leaf blower and blow off. You don't have to rake mulch and those kind of things. So once it's built, I think they inspect it, they blow it off kind of thing. So I don't think it's a lot of maintenance, but that would be something that the county takes care of.
Good question. Any other comments, questions?
I'll make the motion that we approve $322,000 from the Hospitality Fund to Phase 2 of the Kid Venture 2.0 project.
I have a first by Mr. Newton. Second by Mr. Lockridge. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Bevel. We do have an executive session on the agenda in the section 30-4-70A1, discussion of personnel matters relating to employment and appointments and compensation pertaining to municipal court personnel. Ms. McCreary?
Yes, sir. So our municipal judges are appointed on 2-year cycles. So this is 2-year cycle is up, and requesting a discussion of that for each of the judges, and requesting that in executive session.
Thank you, sir. Having said that, I'd entertain a motion to go in executive session. I have first by Mr. Lockridge, second by the Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? We stand in executive session. And we'll
I do that all the time.
I just say one word
Yes,
to
ma'am.
everybody.
Yes, ma'am.
Listen, to David and,
Oh, my God.
oh, listen, I think this is a good discussion tonight. I'm glad Tony brought it up. I think that makes us all start to thinking, oh,
We're on the air.
are we out of executive session?
Not yet.
He's taping.
Okay. Well, that's okay if he's taping it. I'm not saying anything that could be taped. All I'm saying is I think that's a good discussion that we needed to have.
Good.
I think that we need to all think about this. And David, that just kind of puts you in, not a lawyer there, to thinking, putting your thinking caps on. We'll come up with something really good.
I'd entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
First by Mr. John Roberts, second by Mr. Lockridge. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? In executive session, we discussed the executive session item in regards to the personnel matters relating to employment of appointments and compensations pertaining to municipal court personnel. We heard from city manager, city attorney, and court division personnel. No decision, no action will be taken at this time. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. First by Mr. Roberts. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We'll stand adjourned.